The Expand Pedal Power Battery Kit is the ultimate solution for gigging musicians who rely on pedals to shape their sound, giving you drop-and-go rechargeable power that's always clean, quiet, and reliable.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Kies for Premier Guitar. We're outside Nashville, Tennessee in Madison, hanging out at the Eastside Bowl with Rhett. You guys know this guy. Rhett, how you doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. We've crossed paths. I've seen you down the halls at NAMM, but never officially met each other, so this is fun. Not only do we get to claim friendship at the start here, but also, to learn about your gear.
Yeah, man. No, it's a real, genuine honor to be on this. Like, we were just talking before we rolled. I've been watching this maybe since the beginning, like 08, 09, so
I mean,
cool.
It's a likewise, mutual admiration because I've watched your channel grow and evolve, and just the content you've created, just the things you've done. I knew, before the world shut down, you were touring a lot with Noah Guthrie, and that was kind of the angle of the channel, and a lot more of that. And now it's obviously always gear. That's what brings us all together here on YouTube and in the guitar sphere. But now it's like you got the live to tape stuff going on, and you got the studio rebuild, or the studio build, I should say, at your new home outside of Atlanta. So it's like, just as much as you watch the Rig Rundown, we're watching and seeing what you guys are doing.
Thanks,
too.
man. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, there's a thing I wanted to cover starting off, but you grabbed the Novo first because as you content creator, you made a video contemplating bringing out a certain guitar, but we'll leave that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. So tell me about the Novo.
This is my number one. It's a Novo Serus J from 2017. I bought it new in 2017. It took every single dollar and cent I had to my name to buy it at the time. And it's been with me ever since. It's been my number one ever since. I believe this was the last one that Dennis Fano, I think, finished building in Pennsylvania before they moved the shop here to Nashville. And I met them through this guitar right after they moved here. But yeah, it's a special one, man. It's one of my first YouTube videos I ever made was about this guitar, and it's been with me on, God, I don't know how many shows. It's the one.
Why is it the one?
When I bought this guitar, I wasn't looking for something like this. I just wanted something that had P90s, and my wife Tilly actually saw it hanging on the wall of the shop. She pointed out, like, you should check that guitar out. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, what is this? Like this weird pink sparkle offset thing. And I picked it up and I played that chord unplugged and was like, oh shit. It rings like a bell.
Yeah, and that pine.
Yeah, man. And I don't know, I think it's a combination of the guitar itself. It's tempered pine. Pretty much everything Novo does is tempered pine. And then these pickups, these are a Malfitano P90s.
Okay.
Which I don't know that you can get anymore, at least not through Novo. I could be mistaken on that, but they're really rad sounding P90s. They're pretty hot. Pretty high output, really mid-rangey and punchy, so they'll hit the front end of most amps really hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just bonded with this guitar from the beginning, and it was with me when I started my YouTube channel, and this has been, I guess, the most recognizable guitar that I have.
Yeah.
Because look at it. It's like, it's hard to miss. It's like pink bass boat sparkle. And this thing too, they've changed. Like a lot of people have done variations of this finish, but this is actually polyurethane, not nitro. Everything they do now is nitro.
Yeah.
But this is when Dennis was still experimenting. So this has a larger flake in the paint than they do now. So the newer sparkles don't look quite like this one does. Yeah, it's a ripper.
Man, you encounter gear. It's your day job to check out new gear, and as it comes down the pipeline, does it sway you off this guitar? Has there been ebbs and flows in your connection with it, and based on or revalidation that this is the one?
Not necessarily my connection with it. I get pretty sentimental with my guitars and attached to them. But yeah, there are ebbs and flows where I don't play it much in favor of other stuff. It just depends on what I'm feeling or what I'm doing or working on at the time. Because it's not necessarily, it's an incredibly versatile guitar, but it's not right for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Zach and I started talking about doing these shows several months ago, I was like, yeah, this has got to be the one that comes out, you know. So.
Yeah. So backing up, and I should have started the video with this. Can you tell me a little about what happened at Stillwater? You know.
Yeah. So you may notice some of my gear is covered in dust right now. It's not dust, it's ash. Last week we were in Stillwater, Oklahoma for the Mid-South, which is a gravel race and music festival founded by a very good friend of mine, Bobby and Crystal Wintle. And I'm a big bike nerd, big cyclist. Yeah. And we went out to play the festival, and I was going to race in the 100-mile gravel race. My wife is a photographer, she was shooting the race. And on Friday, the day we were set to play, crazy winds came through central Oklahoma, 70+ mile-an-hour gusts, started a wildfire. The wildfire ended up coming into town, and we went from setting up for a gig to like crisis survival mode. And it was, yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but it was pretty hairy and dicey there for a second. And it all ended up okay. Mostly, I don't believe any lives were lost. I think something like around 100 homes were lost. Mm-hmm. So there is a relief fund. There's a Stillwater Fire Relief Fund that you can donate to. Maybe
we'll put a link in here.
Yeah. A lot of people lost homes. A lot of people lost businesses out there. And Stillwater is a really special town. We've fallen in love with that community and those people out there. So we did end up getting to play for them the next night, which was pretty magical because I think everyone was like wanting a release, to have fun, and some amazing bands came, Johnny Mullinex and Kaylin Faye, and it was great. So
would this have been your first 100-mile race?
Yeah. So there's a few more races coming up this summer that I've now been signed up for by Bobby. So that 100-mile race is now turned into 2 100-mile races and a 200-mile ride in between the races. So,
wow.
Yeah, I got to get in shape.
So I grew up in Iowa. Iowa is big for biking, and it has Ragbri, which is right across the state. And so I'm curious, what's your favorite? Do you like to ride in the like road racing, cycling, or is it more mountain biking or gravel?
All of the above.
Okay.
Other than therapy, riding a bike is the best thing I've ever done for myself.
I agree.
It's the best thing you can do. Go get a bike and start riding. I've gotten in shape. It helps me mentally and physically. So yeah, if I can be on a bike riding something, whether it's road, gravel, mountain bike, I'm happy.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite bike? Just like your Novo here? What's the bike?
It's super nerdy. My friend Tyler Seams, who's an amazing singer-songwriter, has a company called Merman.
Okay.
They do really small runs of frames. It's called a Merman Scallywag. It's a fully hand-built titanium gravel bike with pretty aggressive geometry.
Yeah.
Big meaty tires. It's sick, man. It's so rad.
Yeah, I got a giant Revolt that I've had for
those are
15
sick.
years, and it's my go-to bike. As Perry can attest to, I used to ride all over town. I live here in Madison. It's a little trickier. But when I lived in Nashville, I used to ride all over.
Nice,
that was my main mode of transportation.
Dude, there's a huge crossover I've noticed in the bike world and the music world. Like a lot of the cyclist friends I now know are guitar players and vice versa. And I've been evangelizing this stuff to all my musician friends back home and getting more people riding. Like it's the best.
Yeah, I love it. It's the closest to, you like I said, like therapy, where I can zone in. It's kind of similar to guitar, where you're just trying to physically meet the need of whatever's in front of you, the hill, whatever, and then also be on alert for cars.
Yeah, kind of fighting for your life out, especially in Atlanta where I live. Like, you can be a target sometimes out there.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get too far onto the weeds or the gravel. Can we hear this guitar? I know people have seen it on your channel, but let's hear it before we move on.
Yeah, I'll go straight into the amps without any of this shit on. So.
Okay. You know, a lot of it's the amps, and we'll get there, but that's just a great tone. Before you go here and start coloring.
Yeah. A part of it too, I think, is this bridge. It's got the Mastery tremolo and bridge on it.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, Kevin Kadish, is another big Novo guy. He has the Serus J with this bridge on it. He's put little O-rings in between these strings because they do, like when you're playing, these resonate almost sympathetically, like, and it can get noisy, especially when you have a lot of gain on. But I like that sound.
Yeah.
It's kind of the character of this guitar to me. It's almost a little messy sounding. But yeah.
Some extra overtones they didn't pay for.
Yeah, and are not in tune.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Should we move on to
let's do it.
one of the three here?
Yeah, so this is this one. That's the one you were referring to a minute ago.
The video you were contemplating in the video in real time.
So this is a new guitar for me, the Jack White Fender third man collaboration Triplecaster thing. Not a Telecaster because look at it. Like there's nothing Telecaster about this other than the shape. It's rad. So I did a video. I got my hands on the amp, the Reverb, which I think is maybe the best Fender amp that's come out in the last few decades.
For
in my
sure.
opinion.
I mean, for one note, it's different.
It's so rad.
A lot of the stuff they do, you know, it's great. Is reissue stuff.
Yeah, it's super cool. And then Fender saw the video that I made on it, and they asked if they could send this guitar out to me, and I said hell yes, because I'd had my eye on it since it came out.
Yeah.
And at first, I mean, it looked cool, but I thought it was going to be a little gimmicky. Like, okay, cool, it's got the kill switch and the drop tuner and everything. This is actually, I think, one of the most versatile guitars I now own. Like, each one of these pickups is a completely different sound, and there's no blending between the pickups, so you just kind of pick whatever sound you want, and it changes it into almost 3 different guitars, essentially. Kill switch is cool. The blower switch, I guess is what people prefer this as.
The boost.
Yeah, is really rad. And then the drop tuner, that's why I have it here tonight. We're doing a couple songs in drop D, and it's easy to just
go
hit
for
it.
it. Yeah. So is that kind of how you're using it, or do you have a favorite kind of spot with the pickups, or do you engage all 3 at different points?
I really like the Filtertron in the bridge and the P90 in the middle. I haven't found a lot of use for the neck wide range humbucker yet with this guitar, but I've only had it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty new. And I do actually play it most of the time with the switch in the down position, which is essentially like eliminating the electronics, sending the pickup straight out. So it's rad.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, cool. Rad.
I gotta ask, because my colleague did a number on one of Jack's guitars. Have you broke Bigsby?
No, not yet. I was gonna say if John's here, he's not allowed to touch this one, but he's not here today.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Unfortunately, he was busy, but yeah, he gets his hands on anything. It's probably 50-50 chance it's gonna come back with some type of surgery needed.
Yeah, man. I really think Jack and the team at Fender, like the amp, you can tell they put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah.
This is not just a bunch of stuff on here because it looks cool. Like every decision they made, I think, had a lot of intentionality behind it, and it's awesome.
Why not bring the amp out as well?
I talked about this in my video. I feel like it was a little on the nose to have both.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree, but I wanted to give you a chance to.
Yeah. People were on two minds about it. Some people were like, no, dude, it's cool, whatever. But I was just like, I don't know. Being in Nashville with the Jack White guitar and the Jack White amp, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, should we meet the third friend here?
Yeah.
Speaking of Nashville, Gibson here.
So this is a custom shop Firebird. I always get confused on Firebird. So this would be a non-reverse Firebird 5,
okay.
I think. Someone can correct me, and I'm sure someone will.
Yes.
Gibson fans being what they are. So this was one of their NAMM show guitars from 2020. And I wanted to do a video about the history of the Firebird because this guitar has a really interesting history with the designer being the guy that designed the yellow cab, and you know, it's a really weird guitar. If you've never played a Firebird, like especially sitting down, they're shifted to the left, like they feel weird to play. And the Firebird pickups are unique. I think these are some of the best pickups ever made. And so I asked Gibson if I could borrow one for the video, and they loaned me this one. And I got it and was like, oh, you're not getting this one back. And they were cool about it. So yeah, it's a custom shop. 2020, this was at the NAMM show. I think of this kind of as like the best Fender that Gibson ever made because of these pickups, like especially on the neck position. The Firebird neck pickup is almost Strat-like in some ways. But it's just rad and it looks cool.
Yeah, it's one of those guitars like on a person on stage, it gets your attention fast.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has the color I love, this Heather Mist poly, and then the Maestro Vibrola, which I've heard a lot of people complain about these. I think this actually works pretty well for two things. One, it counterbalances the guitar because this thing neck dives like crazy. There's a lot of weight up here with the banjo tuners and everything. But two, you know, with the walrus tooth, it actually works relatively well, stays in tune relatively well. So yeah, it's cool. But I'll play the neck pickup so you can
let's
hear
hear that.
That's almost like a telly in a way. And then the middle position, you know, it's not very traditional Gibson sounding at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, you're touched on it with the Novo. How did you decide to bring out the two other guitars? Because, like I said, you encounter gear all the time. You probably have a great collection. So when you come out for these shows or anytime you go on tour, whether it's, you know, supporting someone or doing your own music, how are you parsing down something to make it, you know, fit and work on stage?
I always bring at least two for a backup. And then if I have any other need, like tonight we're doing a lot of stuff in drop D, so, you know, a third guitar for that. In terms of what guitars to bring, the first thing I think of is pickups. So I want a humbucker-ish thing and a single coil-ish thing.
Okay.
So those two categories. And then from there, it just comes down to what am I interested in, like what's exciting me at the time. I've been playing the Firebird a ton recently. And two, there's also the question of aesthetics. I think aesthetics in a live show context, especially for a rock band, aesthetics really matter to the audience, whether they're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
This is why I think having amps on stage, if you're a rock band, you need to have amps on stage. You need to be moving air, especially we have two drummers tonight. So,
yeah.
And then the guitar, like you're putting on a show, you're here to entertain people, and you want to play stuff that looks cool and is eye-catching and all that kind of stuff. So that's part of it for me.
I mean, that's an honest, because sometimes people wouldn't say that because it's all about the tone or the feel, but there is some honesty in your answer because more people probably secretly admit to something like that in terms of decision making.
Yeah, all these guitars play great and sound great. Like that's the prerequisite. I'm not going to bring out a guitar that sucks to play, you know. But once you're past that, it's like, yeah, if it looks cool, it makes me feel cool when I'm playing it, and I like the way it sounds, so I'm probably going to play better.
Yeah. So. Even if it's just a mind game, it's just a thing that just gets you over the top.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you want to get on to the Novo to kind of go through their pedal board, but you got double amps here.
Double amps. So you want to start with the amps?
Yeah, let's go there.
Okay. So the dual amp thing is something very new for me. I'm not running stereo. I don't believe in running stereo live in a setting like this. It's not going to translate live. We're in a few hundred cap room. It's, you know, Drew, our front of house engineer tonight, if I was running stereo amps, is probably not hard panning them left and right. And even if he was, you're only going to get the stereo image if you're standing like right in the middle of the room. At least that's how I think about it. So traditionally, I only run one amp, but for this, I wanted to try two as kind of a tonal mixing color thing. So first one is my 2-Rock. It's a classic Reverb signature 100 watt. I'm running it full tilt, 100 watts tonight, and this amp is the best amp I've ever owned.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
2-Rock stuff never disappoints.
I was kind of skeptical of the 2-Rock thing for a long time because they're really expensive and you know, but when I met Eli and then I got my hands on this amp, I totally changed my mind. These are, I think, some of, if not the best made amps you can buy today. It's insane. Like the build quality of these is just out of control.
Their attention to detail is off the charts.
Yes, and tonally, this amp is, I think of it as being really broadband. Like it creates a lot of information. So, you know, whatever guitar you put in, the subtle differences in the pickups and you know, your signal chain, all of it comes out of this amp, which can make it a bit difficult to play because everything you put into the amp is being represented. And so if you're having a bad night and you're playing like shit a little bit, you cannot hide behind this amp at all.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is if you are playing great and feeling great, this amp rewards that. So yeah, it's really versatile. The way I have it set here is big, wide, heavy, clean with just a touch of saturation coming from it. And yeah, I can play it just by itself if you want to hear that. There we go. So there's just like a not even an edge of breakup, there's just a little bit of compression on it when I hit it harder. But it's still mostly clean.
It seems really responsive to how you're hitting the strings too.
And this has the best master volume of any amp I've ever played. Like I've got the master pretty low right now, and it still sounds exactly how I want it to sound. You can run it on 50 watts. It doesn't get any quieter, it just breaks up sooner, gets more compressed. And so for the sound I'm going for tonight with it, I have it on 100 watts and I brought the master down to kind of balance it for the room.
Got it.
So.
What strings are you running?
These are D'Addario NYXLs.
And the D'Addario NYXL.
But they're D'Addario strings, and I've been using those since forever, and I love them.
D'Addario strings as well.
D'Addarios.
Right.
D'Addario. I've been using D'Addario. I'm a fan of D'Addario.
Started using these D'Addarios. I like the D'Addario NYXLs.
This is a D'Addario, and I got the NYXLs on here.
Yeah.
And how's the Port City getting used, or kind of in the tonal equation?
This is actually not a Port City. This is on a Port City cabinet.
Okay.
This I just got last week. So this was built by a guy out of Montgomery, Alabama named David Edwards. It's a prototype. David just builds amps like a handful a year, I think, just for fun. And this amp is ridiculous. He calls it the Apollo.
Okay.
The topology is based off of a Trainwreck Songwriter 30, which I'd never heard of, but apparently it's an amp that Ken Fisher built for like his 60th birthday or something. And David took that and tweaked it. So it's kind of AC15-ish, but Trainwreck-ish, and it's, oh wow, I'll play it here. It's pretty nuts. So
I was going to ask, is it like a pair of EL84s?
No, it's Jesus. He told me it's. I think I don't remember. It might be KT 66s. I need to go back and look exactly what it is, but it can run at half power. It's got a push volume here, which is a nice touch. Just treble and bass, and then this medium and OG switch. He described to me as this setting, the medium setting, being Brian May treble booster kind of thing, and the OG being a little less compressed and a little more open. So I'm using this as like the gain, like compressed mid-heavy sound, and when you combine both of the amps together, you get this like. So in my head, this is like one giant amp set to edge of breakup.
Yeah.
So I've got the big, wide, broadband clean and the focused, mid-rangey crunch thing, and together it gives me the. Like I can lighten up on it and get it to clean up, and then dig in.
Now, because he's such a small-time kind of hobbyist, how did you learn about him?
Through my friend's driftwood guitarist, Chris Alvarado. He built an amp for Chris that was just a straight-up train wreck clone a few years ago, and I played it here in Nashville when they brought it up, and it was amazing. I've never played a real train wreck, so I don't know how it compares to a real one, but that one that he built sounds amazing. And yeah, he follows my YouTube channel, and I went down to Florida a couple weeks ago to hang out with Chris and to work on some videos, and David was there, and he had just built this for me.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, incredible. Like, I had really no idea. I mean, I knew he was working on something, but did not expect him to just show up with it. My favorite feature is the power switch says on and not on. So, in case you forget.
Real clear.
Yeah.
Pedalboard, walk me through what you got down here.
Yeah, okay, so this was built by Exact Tone Solutions here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Love Barry.
In fact, I was over there this morning because at our gig in Oklahoma, a friend of mine stepped on the cable and broke the input jack, and they got me turned around and out the door super fast. This is, it's the perfect rig for me. So it's based around the RJM Mastermind switcher, the PBC6X. And I have a handful of pedals in the loop, and the ones that are not in the loop, like up here on the top row, are being controlled and switched on and off by MIDI.
Okay.
So the reason I built this board is my songs, my EP is very effect heavy, and they're all very different sounds. So over the course of a song, I will go from, straight up fuzz to phaser and delay and all kinds of different stuff, and I need to be able to switch like that instantly. So I basically have each one of my songs set from intro, hook, bridge, solo, whatever, and it's just doing all of everything for me. So when I'm here on stage, I just bang through and hit what I want. But then if we get to a situation where there's a jam or I want to get off the rails, I just hit this function button and it turns into just a loop switcher.
Oh, all right.
And I can turn on each individual pedal down here really easily.
Well, rather than, normally we would go through each individual pedal, maybe just walk us through some of the core sounds.
Yeah,
What
cool.
you got set up?
So this is like an intro sound that I use a lot. So a big part of the sound is the chroma console from Hologram. I bought one of these when it first released, and I used it all over my record for guitar, bass, drums, everything went through the chroma console. So I got a second one to put on my board, and right now this is using it primarily as a compressor with a little bit of saturation. So those are just the amps, and there is some phaser happening from the HX1.
Okay.
But I've got a whole bunch of different sounds pulled up there.
That chrome or hologram in general, I know I'm only familiar with that one now, and then the more rectangular pedal, but they're killing it.
Microcosm.
Yeah,
man, they're amazing. Really cool company based out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
I'm a huge fan of everything they do, basically.
Yeah,
it's super cool. Let's see, another star of the show is the Preamp Mark II from Chase Bliss. So this I'm using as a boost, an EQ, a fuzz, overdrive, whatever, depending on the sound. And then another interesting thing of note is the duophony from GFI system. So this pedal does not actually make sound. It's a stereo like line mixer. So I have 2 pedals plugged into it, which is the Synesthesia from GFI and the Dark World from Chase Bliss. And throughout the show, I'm using this to blend these 2 pedals together in different like combinations and different sounds. So we'll go to a different. So you can see here I'm using it as like an 80s tri-chorus and some reverb, and then I have this controlling the blend of the 2 to give me a nice like lush. So like right there's a good example. The intro of the song, I'm using chorus, a touch of reverb, a little bit of the chroma console for this like thing, and then the hook is the phaser and I believe just the preamp Mark II, and that's giving me.
Yeah, very different.
Isn't
If you
that
were to
cool?
do that
Yeah.
with your feet, you would still be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool to see like all the faders move through presets on the preamp. And so, and then for the solo, another sort of hallmark of this sound is the beam splitter from Old Blood Noise, which is 3 different distortion circuits in one with a sort of interesting modulated delay spatial thing in between, which you can do all kinds of stuff with. But and there I'm using it with the Argonaut from Mythos, which is an octave up thing. It's just the octave up. So what's cool about that is any of my overdrives or my fuzzes I can turn into octave drives or fuzzes, which I love. So I can use the actual fuzz. Or just like the Noel overdrive here. So it's the Argonaut is super useful. It's really small. It's micro size, so it'll fit on just about any board.
In the memory lane here, you put that on for a second. What's that?
So I just got this. This one is the, I believe this is their Mark I Tonebender clone. I bought a NOS version of the Mark I from Macari's a few years ago, and it's my favorite fuzz ever. So when they sent this out to me, and I plugged it up, and I immediately put it on the board. So it's, you know, just a heavy, heavy fuzz. Doesn't really like clean up super well or anything, but it's just.
Yeah, but why would you want that to
so
clean up?
heavy. Like you hear it, you feel the compression when it like blooms out. It's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah.
Other cool thing is the Mood. So the Mood here from Chase Bliss is the Mood Mark II. This is the only thing, this and the Boost are not controlled by or in the looper at all. This is the very last thing in the chain. And the idea here is that at different points of the show, this is kind of always listening, always looping. So I can play something. And then start looping it. Well. And then I can use that as a way to sort of like it's just a fun like soundscape generator thing. You can do all kinds of crazy cool stuff with. And then the Zeo boost from Source Audio, there's just an analog boost, and it's in the loop, but it's always on, so that at any time, like if I want It's just a boost on top of whatever I've got going. I can just hit that and it'll hit the amps harder.
Now, just for everyone to keep track at home, how are you hitting the amps with this? Like, is
Just
it
straight in the front.
Okay, both of them then? You're
Yeah.
getting it?
So I'm coming out of the board into this Lely ABY box
Okay.
I just bought as a way to try out the dual amp thing. And so I'm coming out of the board straight into this and then splitting out of this straight into the front of both amps.
Okay.
And I picked this one because it has a phase flip on it.
Gotcha.
And the two amps are out of phase with each other, so I can fix that. But yeah, that's kind of the quick overview of the board. I mean, other notable things, the HX1, this is kind of my like wild card fill in the gaps pedal. It can be anything basically.
Yeah.
So I have it doing a bunch of different stuff depending on how everything else is set. And yeah.
It's funny how Line 6, you could start with the Helix floor and then it have the different iterations of the thing that just keeps condensing down, but still has a lot of the generators that are going or that the noises you want.
Yeah, man. And the board itself, I have to shout out Barry and Eric from Exactone. They built this for me. It is the best board I've ever had. My favorite thing about it is this interface here. I believe they call this the MIDI Facer. I can't remember the exact name of it, but you can run 2-cable or 4-cable methods. So for instance, if I'm just running the 2-rock, I can plug the send and return from the effects loop in here, and it will automatically do the switching to put some of these effects in the loop and some of them in the front of the amp. And I don't know how they wired it up to get it to do that thing for me, but that was a requirement I had. It's like sometimes I want an effects loop, sometimes I don't. And it also has an extra 9-volt out here, so like I'm running the Lely off of that. It's such a useful thing.
They're problem solvers.
Dude, they're so good. They're so good, and it's a hinged tiered board. It's built like a tank. The cable management and dressing is amazing. They're the best. So, yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, what can people expect? And obviously you'll be keeping apprised of everything that's going on your channel and stuff, but what, for our audience and anyone that has a crossover, what's going on in Rhett's world the rest of the year, whether it's, more music, hopefully, performances?
So I put out an EP at the end of last year as my first EP ever as a solo artist, and I'm working on more music now. I'd like to maybe by the end of this year have a full-length record out. And I'd like to do more of this stuff, just get out and playing live to audiences that want to hear what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just continuing to make YouTube videos and staying the course there.
Do you still have as much fun as you started when you did, the channel and the content?
Oh yeah, dude. It's like this is the best job ever. I mean, it is a job. Like don't get me wrong. It's a full-time 50+ hour a week job.
Yeah.
But dude, I mean, I get to play with guitars and make music and be creative all day. I mean, it's challenging. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it's the best.
I'm sure in a way too, you started doing it to be musical, and then now in ways it can almost facilitate you chasing more the musical dream.
It started as a creative outlet. I was a hired gun touring player with Noah Guthrie and then an artist here, Jesse Wilson, in town. And I needed a creative outlet because this is a hired gun. I didn't own anything. I was just playing other people's parts. And so that's how the channel started, and then it grew and became my business and my career and everything. And so now it's fun to be able to get back to music and playing live, but now as myself and not as a hired gun.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you, man. I can't wait to see where the highway takes you.
Thanks, man.
It's great to meet you,
Yeah,
and
me too.
can't wait to keep watching on YouTube, man.
Thanks, dude.
You guys all have fun. Stay safe.
satisfaction of finishing your pedalboard for the 38th time.